What up, everybody? How's it going? This is yours truly, Rama Screen, covering movies, TV, and entertainment, and it's time for another collabo. And this time we're gonna celebrate another anniversary, and that is Watchmen 10th anniversary, the movie Watchmen by director Zack Snyder. And I'm here joined by my fellow YouTuber and the biggest Watchmen fan in the world, John Corona of The Real Talk. How's it going, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Rama? Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And like you said, talking about 2009's Watchmen, like you said, directed by Zack Snyder. And I'm so happy you asked me to be a part of this because everybody knows that I seem to Watchmen's the worst movie for me. I'm big on talking trash about this movie. So if you didn't include me, I'd be kind of mad, but not.
well,
No, I'm kind of known for okay, Watchmen's my favorite film, so I'm super honored for you to ask me to be a part of this.
Well, I'm glad you can make the time, and then we are gonna go straight right to it.
Yes.
I let's before we dissect the film, I'm sure you as a fan already know the history behind it. With the book.
Yes.
Graphic novel. I think people call it the most celebrated graphic novel of all time. It's by the great Alan Moore and illustrated by Gibbons.
Dave Gibbons, yes.
That's right. And for many years, a bunch of studios, including Fox and Universal, they tried and tried. I think a bunch of filmmakers, including Terry Gilliam, tried to adapt this into a movie, but they just couldn't. And then it got to a point where, just like Lord of the Rings, at one point, was dubbed unfilmable.
Unfilmable,
It's
yeah.
like there's no way you can film Watchmen. It's just too big, too complex, the story, and all the way until, of course, early and mid 2000s, when after 300 analysts, WB's like, okay, let's have Zack Snyder do it. So I want to ask you first. When was about the movie, the 2009 movie? When was the first time you watched it? What was your recollection experience watching it in the theaters? And what was your reaction when you got out of the screening?
No, yeah. I actually never really before the movie came out.
Yeah.
I actually never really heard about the Watchmen graphic novel. Like,
Ah.
I've seen it before, like at whenever I go to like comic shops or something, I would see it like the big yellow button with the red. I thought it was ketchup at one point, but once the trailer came out back then, a lot of people, the internet was different. Like this whole YouTube space was
True.
different, but I still heard about it, getting talked about, And
Mm.
then I saw the trailer, I was like, what is this? I've never heard about these superheroes. Like where's Batman? Where's Spider-Man? I didn't know. So I did my research. I was like, you know what? This one's like, it made Time magazine's, top 100. Um, I believe it was like the best literature, like American literature. So it's on there in Time magazine's
Excuse me.
top 100 list. So I was like, okay, cool. Like this is something serious. And then I started reading up, like we said earlier, like it was on development hell. There's a bunch of like directors, writers, even there was a cast at one point. But yeah, once I saw, I was excited for it. I saw it, and it was something. It was a bit of an experience for me. And I had even back then in 2009. I remember like I wasn't old enough, so one of my friends' parents took us, and then the second time I sneaked in there because I had to watch this movie a second time. But I remember it was kind of an experience for me. It was during my phase of like watching all these movies that would kind of change my point of view and philosophy on some things, and kind of just kind of a gateway to other films. So I
Yeah.
remember it kind of like, oh man, like this movie, something else. I didn't really fully understand it back then, but I knew it was something, at least for me, something special.
Yeah, I'm kind of like with you. Prior to 2009, I was like, Watchmen, what? I remember going to the Comic Con 2008, and they had this big panel at Hall H. I was like, what is this movie? Like, I never read the comic books, never heard of it.
Yeah.
And back then, 10 years ago, by the way, the movie came out March 6th, 2009. This past March is the 10th anniversary. We couldn't do this collabo back then because busy, and of course there's WonderCon. Thank you, John, for helping me out with WonderCon, by the way.
Oh, no
Um,
problem.
so March, was busy, so now we can finally do this collabo. So yeah, 2009. back then, if you remember, that was post The Dark Knight, and of course after 300 came out a few years before. Midnight screening Thursday night. That was the shit. That was the stuff that people
standing
go
in
to.
line.
Yeah. So because there was no like, right now there's like 7 p.m. showing Thursday night. 8 p.m. showing.
Yeah.
There's none of that. Back then it's just like just midnight. That's
really at midnight. Yeah, I kind of missed that, but
yeah, it sounds exclusive. It's like
Yeah.
and they have midnight showings for at least 2-3 doors in the theaters. And so I watched it, and I gotta be honest with you, I fell asleep like maybe halfway through.
yeah, it's a lengthy movie.
Yeah, I want to say, let's double check here. It's 2 hours and 42 minutes, so clocking near 3 hours. And I remember, I think Snoop Dogg also said on this game show when he was asked about Watchmen, he said like, "Oh, I fell asleep during that movie." So I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm not the only one." But I'm not belittling the movie. I'm just saying that was my reaction when I first watched it. My second reaction was, "That's a lot of blue penis."
I thought you were gonna comment on Melon Ackerman, and that whole scene, but
I did.
blue penis it is.
I did wake up when Patrick Wilson and Malin Ackerman have sex on that owl ship, and that was pretty cool.
Especially in IMAX or something.
Exactly, I was watching it in IMAX. So that was my reaction coming out of that, and I think that was the only time I ever watched Watchmen. And then the second time was when I would rewatch it again for this conversation to prep myself for this collabo. That was
really?
yeah,
So recently, huh?
Yeah, that was that. So I've only watched Watchmen twice in all my life, basically.
I've seen it twice this year already, right?
So, but let's get right to it then, because after watching it again, I have more appreciation for it. I found newfound appreciation for it, and one of which is, and I kid you not, John, I went to also Barnes and Noble. And I, briefly skimmed the graphic novel. I couldn't read the whole thing because it's too big, too thick. I didn't have time in the world. But I grabbed some moments from the graphic novel, and then I rewatched the movie. Right, so I went to the bookstore first, and then watched the movie. And man, dude, it's pretty accurate.
It's almost page by page, man.
Yeah, like the whole part, especially one I want to pick out was when Night Owl asked or said to Rorschach, like, "Man, remember the good old days? We were kicking ass. Like, what happened to the good old days?" And then Rorschach's like, "You quit." And then there's and the graphic novels immediately it cuts to like Night Owl just like sitting and pondering as the suit in the back, and that was the exact shot in the movie. Oh my god! So I was blown away by usually other movies have creative license or freedom. But Zack Snyder stayed true for the most part.
Yeah, I think he did an incredible job. Him and the cinematographer Larry Fong, they just just studied the graphic novel, and they did an amazing job. Because right after that came out and I saw it, I went to my local library and I rented the graphic novel and just I read it religiously. But no, it is. It's almost a lot of scenes are page by page, and a lot of comic book fans now like, oh man, they didn't get this right, they didn't get that right. They did change the ending, to this film. But most of it, they're like, you know what, they can't complain. It's almost page by page. That's why I really appreciate it. And in some cases, maybe a lot of people do say like, oh, maybe that's why I didn't like it or something. Because, a lot of times if you try to adapt something, maybe it's not the best way to put it on film. So maybe that, I heard that too. Like it's too, like faithful to the comic. But it's pretty spot on, man. I really like that. I really appreciate that.
Now, you probably read the book more thoroughly than I did. What were these parts that you said that, well, they had to change it because, well, of course, we're gonna talk about the ending later, but there are parts like, oh, it's because of budget or because the visual effects haven't caught up to it yet, or whatever reason. What are those parts?
There's a few, like there's a lot. There's a little bit more stuff with the Minutemen, the first set of heroes.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, and then there's also obviously like we talked about the ending where spoilers, but
we're discussing spoilers here. No worries, we're discussing spoilers.
It's been 10 years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's even more from the graphic novel. In the graphic novel, there's like this big giant squid at the end that Ozymandias kind of sends
Yes.
to New York City and kind of makes it kind of the same premise of it, killing a lot of people. But in the movie, it makes more sense that he used Dr. Manhattan's power,
Atom
and
bomb.
his whole kind of, he manipulated a lot of things, a lot of certain things, so that the world would. It kind of makes more sense if Dr. Manhattan does these like acts around the world, So,
Mm.
instead of just this random ass giant squid.
Yeah, because I think yeah, we'll talk about the ending now then. Well, the giant squid, when I read the comic books, like you said, it only attacks New York City, and
Yeah.
in the movie it's like a worldwide attacks,
Yeah.
right? I was like, okay, I guess
All
that kind of
major
makes more
cities.
sense. Yeah, because I think if you have giant squids on the movie or in the movie, then it would be out of place. It would be like, wow, I guess the movie is not that serious. People will not be able to take it seriously. Do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And then I feel like the movie's already long. There's already too much to all these characters, and then just
Yeah,
to have that, everybody's gonna be like, wait, where did this come from?
yeah,
It'll kind of throw people off too. And then also in the graphic novel, there is the kind of a comic within the comic of the Tales of the Black Freighter,
that's right.
and that's actually included, which I really appreciate in the Ultimate Cut. So they add a little bit more to it already. The lengthy runtime, I think it's almost 4 hours. The Ultimate Cut.
That's right. That's right.
They added is not only the director's cut but also the Black Tales of the Black Freighter. So that they cut that out, but it's kind of still in the movie if you watch the Ultimate Cut. But there's also that whole thing with the mini comic book in the graphic novel.
Now, I want to talk about Alan Moore. This guy
Oh yeah,
is a stickler. He's immovable. He's like a rock. He's like he hates that any of his work gets adapted, and on
yeah,
top of that, he would never watch any of those adaptations, especially his Watchmen. And I think he hasn't seen the movie even to this day. And I mean, it's
yeah.
not
I
like
don't think so.
I read that Zack Snyder doesn't take that as offense, but at the same time, like really, like I think you would like it kind of if you give it a chance. I mean, what are your thoughts about this Alan Moore, dude?
I mean, it will be kind of hard to, really be, put yourself in his place because he does such particular work, and a lot of his work, like he did the Killing Joke, and that's like
That's
really
right.
appreciated in V for Vendetta and stuff like that. So we love a lot of his work, and it's I think a lot of his work is more bigger than itself, kind of like Watchmen. It's a lot of philosophical stuff going on. So I feel like that type of person, he is like, look, my work is my work. It's made for a graphic novel, like literature. Leave it alone, But I mean, I think especially Watchmen, if you give it a shot, like it is, almost, really faithful. I think he like it because it's a lot of his work, a lot of that he wrote,
Thanks for bringing that up, though. I think that is Alan Moore's point because I saw that animated adaptation of The Killing Joke, and that was terrible.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
hated that one. They added some things that were just like, whoa, what's going on
To
here?
to kind of lengthen it so it could be like a feature. I get what you mean, man.
Yeah, they butchered his work. A lot of people did not like the Killing Joke movie. But everybody loves the Killing Joke graphic novel. So I can understand where he's coming from. But I think
Yeah.
when it comes to Watchmen, I think he would be surprised if he'd give it a shot.
Yeah, and especially because Dave Gibbons, the artist, he was in contact with Snyder, and like he was doing like press and like interviews and stuff with this movie and the other works that he's done too. But I feel like him and Zach and even like the cinematographer again kind of talked about, okay, what were you guys going for in this scene? Like why did you guys use this colors and stuff like. So I think he'd be a little bit appreciative of it.
Here's a fun fact for your viewer and my viewer, our viewers. The script is co-written by David Hayter, who actually voiced Solid Snake in Metal Gear video game series, and he also scripted X-Men and X2. And of course, our fellow YouTuber Rudy Reviews is a big fan of
Yes.
Metal Gear.
As soon as he said that, I thought about Rudy, man.
He was so over the moon when he met David
Maybe
Hayter.
that's why he likes Watchmen as well.
That's right.
Rudy, aka Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
That's right. He should cosplay as the comedian. I think.
I think he did at one year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got that. He's got that physique. He's got the
Yeah.
physique. The film has a neo noir tone to it. I like
Oh
that.
yeah.
After watching the second time, I appreciate that even more. And it's like another thing that I love is the sound effects for every kick and every punch. It's like
All the blood.
yeah, it's like you can actually hear it like viscerally, like in the cracking of every bone. When
Yeah.
the fist goes to the dude, that prison break fight. I was like,
Oh yeah, man.
oh man, you can just feel every bone crushing of a Night Owl that Silk Spectre second did. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm just I agree with you. That scene is awesome, and everything
Woo!
with Rorschach, even when they go for him in the apartment when they set him up, that's pretty
Oh,
awesome. That's pretty kick-ass too. Like that's the thing when Snyder does action, it's pretty great, man.
yes,
You know, especially
yes.
with these characters, it's pretty cool, pretty gruesome, and again accurate to the comic.
Now, I also gotta give Zack Snyder much credit for the casting because these are not
Yeah.
like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise. In 2009, many of these actors, with the exception of probably Jackie Earle Haley, who has been Oscar nominated by then, they're pretty, not too famous, but not too unknown. You know what I'm saying? Malin
Yeah.
Ackerman, Billy Crudup, Matthew Good, Jackie Earle Haley, Jeffrey Dean Morgan was fresh off of Grey's Anatomy. He was not Negan yet at the time. Patrick Wilson, Carlo Gugino. So I was like, gambling on these actors. These they're not like Nicole Kidman or Meryl Streep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not that level
Well,
was really
Mel
cool.
Ackerman, she's kind of close to Meryl Streep's level, man. Nah,
Ah. But they were right for the roles. They were
yeah,
perfect for the roles. Even if Carl Gugino is only 7 years older than Carla, and then they play mother daughter. But they were right for their roles. I want to talk a bit about uh the some of the controversial parts of the movie. I know when the movie came out, people were like, "Oh my god, the almost rape scene." You're like, "Oh, what's that gonna how's that gonna
oh yeah,
play out with some people?" So and then after watching it the second time, I was like, okay, it was very faithful to the comic books, because I read the pages as well. What are
yeah.
your thoughts about that? Do you think it's a turnoff for a lot of people?
I mean, like I said, this movie does have a lot of heavy subject matter,
Yeah.
especially for young kids,
Hmm.
So it is rated R for a reason,
That's
and
right.
there's a lot of other movies with a lot of other stuff, but I think at the end of the day, the themes and messages is trying to get across, especially in this world of, superheroes that are real,
Yeah.
and especially that's why I like the movie, and for me holds up very well because of a lot of the political stuff going on there too. It's kind of
That's
like, oh
right.
wait, it's kind of still relevant, But, so again, there's a lot of besides that whole rape thing, there's a lot of other stuff too that's kind of could be controversial. But again, like you said it's faithful to the comic book, so it's like, and the themes and messages trying to come across with the heroes and what they're going through and everything like that. Um,
But
I mean,
yeah.
I like those, those things, and it could be hard to watch, but at the end of the day, it's about what it's trying to say, and the way it's, I guess, art in a way,
But
and it's being faithful to the source material.
on that note, though, do you think that? And I think some critics brought this up 10 years ago that the fact that Zack Snyder stayed true to the material, that it kind of backfired because it did not embrace the rest of us, like me and Snoop Dogg, who end up sleeping through the movie.
Yeah,
Now, I gotta be honest with you. Having watched it the second time around, I think, and I want to hear your thoughts about this. I think that Watchmen, because we're anticipating the HBO series coming up. I think
yes,
Watchmen, for what that material was, the HBO series is gonna be its own thing. It's not gonna be really based on Alan Moore. But this Watchmen movie, it would have worked better if it had been a limited series. What do you think?
yeah. I think like thinking about it now, like if they were trying to adapt it now, like if they never did it back then,
Mm.
I think maybe it would work a bit better because again, the movie's almost close to 3 hours, and that's not the director's cut.
Yeah.
There's so much more they could have done, and especially if the same team was behind it,
Hmm.
I think probably yeah, it would have been worked perfect for a limited series. You probably could add a little bit more, or if you just want to, strictly for the comic. But yeah, like again, it could be on some like HBO or maybe Netflix where they have freedom of like blood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think now would be pretty cool to see it like a limited series, like 10 episodes or six.
Yeah,
Uh,
especially with the heavy philosophical stuff that's in it. If it's on a weekly basis, people can dissect it. After every episode, it's like, okay, what is Doctor Manhattan saying with the perhaps the world is not made, perhaps nothing is made, a clock
yeah,
without
all
craftsman.
his all his philosophical things.
So it'll give us time to like actually marinate it. It's like a clock without a craftsman. Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, so like I said, this besides all his stuff, a lot of the themes and stuff, it could be like heavy. Like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
well, Jesus, dude, you're naked. I'm trying to get over that fact. So let me just process what you said. So I mean, it was a graphic novel, so it had its 12 issues. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
So
no,
kind of
that's
like
right.
the monthly thing back then.
That's right.
So it maybe back then it worked like that, and so maybe it could work like another 12, episodes.
That's right. I Let's talk about Ozymandias' motivation because
Yes.
of course we're discussing spoilers here. So he turns out to be the bad guy at the end, but his intention, to me, his intention is the
I think
same.
he's the real hero.
Oh, that's right. No, his intentions are the same as Ultron and Thanos. Basically, it's
Yeah.
very, very to me. After these villains come out, like, oh, we want to make the world a better place by destroying half of it or destroying all of it first and cleanse the earth. It's like it's not very like, oh, another one of these. Like, I feel like that's my reaction also when I watched the movie. I was like, really, that's again this motivation. This has been done many times. Am I wrong to feel, kind of like,
No, yeah, it's definitely seems familiar,
yeah.
especially now, like you said, with like Thanos and Ultron and other movies as well. But I say maybe those got inspired by this since it came out in the 80s.
Oh, that's right.
No, but I mean, there's a bunch of things like that, like kind of too similar and stuff like that. But
Mm,
I mean, especially I feel like back then when they're using, the Cold War and all that stuff, with Russia and all that.
that's right.
Um, I think maybe like if you think about it, like back then, they was like, well, what can they do? They've politically, all this stuff that it won't work, and especially these heroes in that cold, gritty world. Maybe that's the only option that he saw. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, well, we gotta kind of find a common threat. In this case, in the movie, is Doctor Manhattan, so we can come together and stuff like that. And that's the only way that we can,
And
by losing like kind of like
yeah,
global warming. When it's too late, now we'll come together and try to do something about it. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
again, it's trying to say something about us humans and stuff. But um, I mean, I think it works for the story. But again, it is familiar.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The themes of it, I can understand where Ozymandias is coming from though, because, excuse me, um, his thinking is that, man, people or human, they're just gonna continue doing wars. They're just gonna continue
Yeah.
killing each other. I mean, there's no getting sense through their thick skulls. Like, why don't we just press reboot button? Press the restart button and then start afresh. That
Yeah.
kind of thinking was like, oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
So,
Again, like that, I feel like that's one of the recurring themes of like even Rorschach, like humans are savage in nature. Like
that's right.
kind of like saying something about us, like
But the difference between that is like Rorschach wants to keep fighting for
yeah,
that, whereas Ozymandias like it's not worth fighting for anymore. I've lost faith in humanity, right? Am I correct on that?
yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
Rorschach's
That's
like
basically
no,
their difference. Like even Rorschach said, like that's why at the end, like he again spoilers, he had to
that's
be
right.
killed because if he was going to expose the truth, which in the end it's kind of like hinted that it does get out because his book ends up with a lot of people think it's his son because they have the same hair.
That's
I
right.
think in the movie they don't have the same hair actually.
I don't
Thinking about it,
remember. I don't. Maybe that's a wig. I don't know.
yeah, but it's kind of hinted, But like, that his, but that's why they had to stop Rorschach because of his character, who he is, trying to preserve the world, help the people, and stuff like that. So it is two opposite of like
And
two,
yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Finish your thought.
no,
I'm sorry.
like two opposite like the spectrum.
I got you. I got you. And I freaking love Rorschach. I think he is a fan favorite. If you ask
Yeah,
fans of Watchmen, out of the characters who you love the most, they'll, first show of hands is usually Rorschach. Am I correct?
Rorschach, yeah.
And I want to ask because I keep seeing Rorschach costumes or cosplays at Comic Con and WonderCon, and dude, some of these cosplays are amazing. They're like they actually move their ink face like as they breathe or inhale or exhale.
Yeah.
How do they do it? Have you ever asked any of the cosplayers like what's
No,
their
man,
trick?
I haven't had the chance, but does look awesome, and it's cool to see that,
It
obviously, like as a
moves.
fan, it's like, oh man,
Oh.
you guys figured it out. Like, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. For first, like, how do you breathe in that? And number two, how do you make the ink blot moves?
Yeah,
As dude, that is amazing. I mean, if you want to cosplay as a Watchmen character, John, which one would it be and why?
definitely fully nude, Blue Man Group, Doctor Manhattan. I have to lose some weight, a little bit, kind of go to the gym, but I'm down.
I'm Silk Spectre.
Oh man, hey, with that wig, Rama. Woo! Nah,
Hey, I've got good legs. I can show them off.
I used to run, man. I used to run. Got good legs.
And also, when I watched the movie for the first time, since I didn't know the material, I was like, "Was that Batman?" I was like, "Oh, that's not
Oh
Batman."
yeah,
But because the ears, the cowl is not as tall. They're not as tall. I was like, oh, that's Night Owl. Okay, so that looks like an owl, I guess you could say. And Patrick Wilson he actually gained some weight.
gain some weight. Yeah,
Yeah, he got really chubby for that one.
that's what I was gonna say. Maybe in realistically, I can play Night Owl.
Oh, I can too now. I can. We'll both be Night Owl, brother.
Night Owl 1 and 2. There it is.
My there. Let me ask you before I ask you. I want to give you my favorite scene and my favorite moment, my favorite quote. Okay, so
That's the sex scene.
I know. In addition to the sex scene, and aside from it, my favorite scene is actually when Rorschach got, after he got exposed, his face, and he got thrown into prison. In the cafeteria, he beat up this guy, and then
Oh
he
yeah.
said like, sorry, it's my cell phone. It's like he said, I'm not the one locked up in here with you. You're locked up in here with me.
Yeah. That was
Damn.
that was awesome. That was badass, man.
Yes. What's your favorite scene and quote or moment?
Oh man, that's hard, dude. That's very, very, very hard. I think I have to. Man, I love Rorschach, but my favorite character is Doctor Manhattan.
Yeah.
But I think anything with those two characters is my favorite scene. So maybe, really the only interaction they have is probably at the end when Doctor Manhattan kills Rorschach. But I think that scene for me is so emotional, and kind of even seeing that Owl's reaction and stuff like that, and why he had to kill him, and stuff like that. Like kind of the conclusion of his arc and all that stuff. Like, so maybe that scene, I don't know, but there's a lot, man. There's like all the fighting and all that. Like it's pretty cool. But I think I have to go with that since those two are my favorite characters. That exchange they have.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Another big theme that I want to also point out is when. Well, this is not one of my favorite scenes, but it's just something that pops up when Night Owl's like, "Hey, what happened?" To the comedian, he said, "What happened to the American dream?"
Yeah,
And then the comedian's like, "This is the American dream. You're looking at it."
yeah,
And
it came true. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that also goes to the disenfranchisement. That's the word I'm looking for. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, heroes becoming disillusioned. They're like, what's the point of keep fighting for these people? So it's like by that point, the economy and the wealth gap divide, the poor versus the rich. It's got rioting on the streets. There's a mess. The world was led by a bad guy, Richard Nixon. And so you got to the point where in the comedian says like, this is America. We're just gonna have to accept that this is who we are now. It's like,
Yeah.
so you want to
Kind
see
of
American
seems
Dream?
familiar, huh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Very relevant to today. No, but it does speak to. I think as the book was written in the '80s, and back then, with Reagan, as I read from what I gathered, that's when the income inequality starts really getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Unemployment rises. The rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and I think Alan Moore use that as a context for Watchmen, even though the president is Richard Nixon,
Yeah.
and I know some critics when the movie came out in 2009 felt like, well, we're not in the Cold War anymore. We're not in the 80s. Those guys are already dead, Reagan and Nixon. How is this movie gonna be relevant? But I'm glad Zack Snyder still kept that setting or era as opposed to make it present day or modern
Yeah.
because it felt more profound that way because it's still relevant as you said.
Yeah, no, yeah. Unfortunately, but
Yeah,
it's still
unfortunately, yeah.
a lot of the stuff is still relevant, and there was talks about it being, when they're first developing it, being modern, but they're like ultimately, well, no, like we want to stay true to that story, and they wanted to say something about back then as well as that, because like I said, in that universe, in that world, we didn't lose Vietnam,
Yeah.
and again, Richard Nixon was elected a few more times, and all that stuff. So they thought that Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore they had something to say with that, and I think they ultimately that's why they went with that setting. And again, it is still relevant. So I appreciate that fact. A lot of people are rewatching it, especially for the 10-year anniversary, and I'm glad this movie kind of came out right as the hype, right before the MCU, because it came out 2009, 2008 was
Yes.
Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, and then right after the Dark Knight. So I feel like kind of like the comics, Watchmen kind of gave hey, this is what comic book movies can be. Something more than just fun, can make you think. It could be something like that as well.
That's
But a lot of
right.
people back then, obviously in 2008, like the housing market was gone to shit and stuff like
Yes.
unemployment. So people probably wanted to go to the movies and have fun. It still made some money though. This movie, I think it made its budget back, so
Oh,
it was cool.
yeah. Let's give that fun fact for our viewers. So the budget is $130 million. Wow, 130, brother.
Yeah,
And
I think after 300, they're like, okay, we'll give you a little bit more.
could you imagine having that much money? Okay, never mind. The movie ended up banking about $107 million domestically and $77 million internationally. It seems I understand that though. It seems that a lot of the story and the context and the setting of Watchmen resonates more or more. It connects more with American audiences. Internationally, they don't have Richard Nixon in Indonesia. They don't have. But and then of course the characters are not Batman and Superman. So only American audiences are very familiar with Alan Moore's work. Other countries may be like, hey, where's Spider-Man? How come he's not in it?
Well, fun fact, they originally when they were gonna use since it's at DC,
Uh-huh.
they wanted to use Batman and Superman. That's why you have characters
Oh,
like Rorschach and Doctor Manhattan.
interesting.
Uh, yeah, because I feel like Rorschach is kind of like Batman because he's a detective, but he's like Batman after he lost it. He had that one
Oh,
day and he continued down that path. Because he
yeah.
does kill and stuff like that. So.
So you're saying that they wanted to have Batman in the movie,
Well,
WB?
not in the movie. Like when they were first, like the first initial thoughts that when they wanted to bring this story to
Okay.
DC and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, they wanted to use the DC heroes, some of the DC heroes,
Uh,
and they're like, no, they didn't want to risk their image, with Superman or Batman doing these type of things.
yeah.
So that's why they're like, oh, we'll create our own then.
For Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, you mean? Okay, for the comic
Yeah.
books. Okay. So yeah, I don't know if that's gonna. I don't know if that would have sit well with Batman fans. I don't know. What do you
And then
think?
Superman too, going to Vietnam and just killing a bunch of people. Like, whoa, that's kind of dark.
Well, years later, Batman did kill a bunch of people in Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Zack Snyder.
Yeah, Zack Snyder. Batman breaks everybody's necks. I was like, what is going on? So
Superman does too. He kills Zod.
exactly, he kills Zod. So there
Zack
you go.
Snyder again.
Thanks a lot, Zack Snyder.
You ruin our heroes.
Now, a little fun fact, some more for our viewers here that I gathered. And thank you for that, adding in that fun fact about Batman. Bob Dylan's songs are used in this movie. I'm a big fan of Bob Dylan's. One of which is "The
Great soundtrack.
Times They Are a Changing." That's right, great soundtrack. And all along the Watchtower as well.
Hendrix.
That's right, Hendrix and Billy Crudup, who plays Doctor Manhattan. He wears a white suit covered with blue LEDs for his scenes with fellow actors. It says here, giving the fellow actors something they could perform against, and then his performance will get blown up by or via CGI into the enormous and blue Doctor Manhattan. That's an interesting fun fact. I thought I was like, oh. I mean, you have, of course, you have the Blu-ray. Is there a 10th anniversary collector's edition Blu-ray? Did WB release that? Any of that?
Unfortunately, no. They didn't release it. Not yet, at least.
Yeah.
It would have been sitting on my shelf right here.
What do you have? Steelbook?
Yeah, it has a steelbook. It does have this collector's edition. It came out a few years ago. It comes with the graphic novel, like a hard book cover, and with the ultimate cut and the digital code and all that good stuff. But it came out a few years ago, not for the 10th year anniversary.
Now, I'm sure you've watched because I haven't, the bonus features. What new information or what new enlightenment that those bonus features give you? Like, that's interesting. What are some of those things?
I think like one of them, I don't know why this came to mind, but like surprisingly, a lot of these people didn't know about the graphic novel. I think there was a few, but not a lot of them. So when they got the part, they went to go read it, and then they're like, oh damn, like I'm kind of really glad I took this because this is a great book. This is awesome. But yeah, I did see Billy Crudup in that suit with the LEDs and stuff like that. It kind of does give like that vibe, like because in the movie he kind of glows, and then you can see that light. So when you see like that blue light against Melon Ackerman, that's from the actual suit. So that's pretty cool. That's not like CGI, That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Anything else about the way Zack Snyder shot the scenes, especially the Prison Break?
Not really. I've seen interviews again, and then about him, just collaborating with the cinematographer and even Dave Gibbons about like I said earlier, he was wondering why certain colors were, like, why'd you guys use this and that, and he tried to bring that to life, But yeah, not that I can think of specifically now, because it's been a while since I.
No worries. Because I love Ozymandias' costume for once, because he has this fixation about Egypt, right? Pharaoh, and so I read the comic books. His costumes are just a little bit tad brighter in color. I think there's some little shades of pink or purple. Of course, for the movie you have to go, make it a little darker. Everything's a little darker nowadays. You can't be too colorful. But I like the design for his outfit for Ozymandias. I think even though Rorschach is my favorite character, of course, but the costume wise, man, what's his name? Matthew Good. He's rocking that thing, man. He looks so good in that.
Yeah,
thing.
man, he looks pretty cool. Kind of gives me a vibe of Batman and Robin because he has like the nipples and stuff like that. But I think that costume makes it work, not like the other ones.
Could you imagine if Ozymandias got nipple in his costume?
Like a nipple cut out, right?
Yeah, cut out. It's
like, don't judge me.
Hey, whatever rocks your boat, Ozymandias. I think, and I also gotta give the movie lots of credit now, having watched it the second time. That superhero movies, they're like, oh, we gotta tend to family or viewing, or make it PG-13. But Zack's like, oh, we're going hard R, baby. We're gonna rate it R, and then we're gonna show that penis, man. In other movies, even in TV shows, of course, there's overemphasis on women's nudity, where the boobs, the bush. But it's like people are like, "Where's the dick?"
Yeah.
And
Well, Zack
where's the
thought about
equality?
everybody in this one, you know?
Exactly. It's all about equality. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna show Doctor Manhattan's penis, and when he gets giant big, that thing's gonna be on the IMAX screen.
Never been done before. IMAX penis.
One thing I love about Doctor Manhattan is that he gets to go to Mars, man. I was like, oh, that's
Oh
awesome.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Those scenes are pretty cool.
That's
They're
pretty cool.
beautiful to look at.
All right, as I'm winding down here, let's talk about in anticipation of the new series on HBO. We've seen the teasers. You've seen the teasers. And obviously, as I said earlier, they're gonna stray away from the comic books. It's gonna be, I think, it's a spin-off sort of thing. Um, I don't know which characters. I think Jeremy Irons gonna be Ozymandias, right? Older
Yeah, he's
Ozymandias.
gonna
Yeah.
play like an older Ozymandias.
So is he the only character from Alan Moore's book that will show up?
So far, yeah, that he's the only one
All right. And
so far.
how high is your anticipation level for this? Because it's not based on the book.
Yeah, I'm trying not to get hyped about it because it is like the book and the movie mean a lot to me. So it's like, man, like they're doing it's risky, when you're kind of straying away from, okay, there's no more material, let's make up our own, But for the scenes, it is like I think there's like a rumor that it's going to be based off the movie, like after the events of the movie, because in this world so far, it's hinted that, like, Rorschach's book got out there and like the whole world found out, So I feel like it's going to be about like the aftermath of all that stuff, and it's going to take a different spin, like you said. All these police people now are kind of hiding their identity because I don't know, maybe like that whole Rorschach group and then the teasers, like, I don't know, I'm really anticipated for it, but again, I don't want to get like too hyped up for it because it's Watchmen, so it's like if it's not good,
Well, I think we can rest assured, or at least have some faith in the fact that Damon Lindelof is handling it. And
Yeah.
you're a big fan of Lost, right?
Yeah, that's another reason I'm like, man, if he's handling it, he did Lost. He does have a lot of controversial stuff. Like,
That's right.
a lot of people thought the ending of Lost. Since I haven't seen the Leftovers, I think he did that, right?
Yeah.
Lindelof.
Well,
So
he got lost on that one. I was like, ah.
he's like, pun.
Well, I am looking forward to it. I think the teasers are only on the official Instagram page, and it was like, so they're all so cryptic. You can't
Yeah.
really make out the storyline just from those teasers. I was like, what is going on?
The cast looks cool too. Like you said, Jeremy Irons, Regina Hall's in there.
Yes, so that the casting is awesome. So that much. So, and Damon Lindelof is a showrunner. So there's reasons to be drawn to this project, even if you don't know much about it, right? Because of the cast and the showrunner, and so you can have some faith in those aspects at least. So lastly here, as we're closing down, let's talk about the themes, that overarching theme, and also what I think the audience can take away from Watchmen. At least for me, I know we talked about American Dream theme and Rorschach. Oh, you're not locked up in here with me. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not locked up in here with you. You're locked up in here with me. But I think the overarching arc is who will watch the Watchmen.
Exactly.
Because Ozymandias' decision in the end, it is equivalent to, or you can draw a comparison to many of leaders of the world, not just our country, where they not just presidents but also congressmen or whatever, where they think like, oh, I know what's best for my people, I know what's best for my constituents, I know what's best for America or the world. If we do this policy or that policy, okay, but sometimes good. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So if you're deciding that for the rest of us, who's gonna decide for you? Who's gonna do the checks and balances on you? Like
Yeah.
telling you like, oh no, that policy is not right. You can't go ahead and just unilaterally do that. Even if your intentions are good. And I think that is the big part of the overarching arc, because we have these superheroes. The Minutemen and the Watchmen, and they're like, it's like, oh, we're gonna save people, we're gonna protect people, we're gonna kill the bad guys, but who's gonna hold you guys accountable? Otherwise,
Exactly.
then you're like gods, and then we're just ants.
Yeah.
So I think to me that is the overarching theme when some people have so much power, so much decision power. Like we have to keep them in check, otherwise chaos is what happens.
Yeah. I think you hit it right on the nail.
And
Well, there's like we said, there's a bunch of like themes and stuff like that. It's very heavy, but I think ultimately that's what it's trying to say, especially even too like with Dr. Manhattan as well. Like he's kind of
oh yeah, dude, he's the most powerful one.
yeah, he's the most powerful man. So like his kind of detachment from stuff and like his kind of story is also like that too. Like positions us to kind of think. What if our creator was like this? He kind of, not doesn't really care. He just created us. Oh, okay, let me see what else I can do.
Yeah.
So, like it kind of ties into like the whole, like the governments and all stuff, all this higher power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. See, thank you for bringing that up. That scene where even though I think he got fooled by Ozymandias, but people are like, oh, you gave her cancer. Like you did this, because you're so close to right that one.
Oh yeah.
When the reporters are like challenging him, and then he's just like obliterate them. It's like, oh, stop yelling at me, and then he just destroy them.
I said, leave me alone. And
I
you
was
can relate to that sometimes, man. Sometimes you're just like, hey, just leave me alone. I want to,
Yeah, exactly. But that's the downside or the cost when somebody has just too much power. Man, it's so deep and profound, the themes. I appreciate it more now having watched it the second time around. And I got to be honest with you, I finally finished I can finish watching through it with
Not falling
breaks.
asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Because I took breaks in between. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I would go take get my coffee. I would go to McDonald's and then I pick it up where I left off. Instead of watching 3 hours straight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that would help if people were like
Just
me in 2009, slept through the movie in the theaters. I would recommend to them, hey, watch it in incrementally. What?
Incrementally.
Incrementally.
Yeah.
What do you think that would help?
Yeah, I think so, man. Because again, like that's why I feel like nowadays it'll be better if it's like a Netflix series or HBO series because it is so heavy, and then
Yeah.
it does take a long time, So I mean, I would even tell people like now to watch the directors or even the ultimate cut, if they want to really get that full Watchmen experience and really get what the movie and the book are about. Yeah, just watch like an hour, now and then an hour later,
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, man. I forgot I was gonna say something. But yeah, oh no, yeah, like especially now in today's climate where you have a lot of like superhero movies, like probably like 5 or 6 a year,
Exactly.
maybe even more.
Thanks a lot, Marvel.
Oh yeah. I think nowadays if you see something like this, you'll appreciate it because it's. I mean, not to hate on what Marvel's doing or even DC's doing and stuff like that, but it's very different from what they're doing. It's kind of a breath of fresh air, even though it came out a while ago. It's a bit more like it packs more of a punch.
That's right.
It makes you think. So not that the other movies don't make you think, but they're more for entertainment. So,
Yes. No, this one really, really makes you think. This one really. It's like,
maybe a little bit too much.
I was in front of the screen like this, bro. What does that mean? Let me pause.
Yeah.
Let me Google that. Now, my last question to you, before you do the plug, do you think that you're gonna come across a new movie in the near future that will blow you away? That you're like, oh my god, fuck Watchmen. This is now my number one favorite movie of all time. Do you think that's gonna happen?
I mean, I hope so, man, because that means there's gonna be another movie that I love so much,
Yeah.
and who doesn't want that? You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I don't know. I think maybe Watchmen is my favorite right now because I feel like I was asking the same questions that Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons were kind of asking those questions, and maybe I found some
Cool.
answers. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of made me think about the world in a different way, and kind of like again like answer some of my questions I was asking myself at that point growing up, you know. So and then I kind of really connect to the story in some way, you know. But I mean, I hope so. I hope there's another movie that because a lot of people are like Watchmen, really? I don't know about that, man. You know,
That was
like,
my reaction when you told me Watchmen was your favorite movie. Remember
oh
that?
yeah, I think it's on video, man. You interviewed me like Watchmen, like.
Really, you don't mean Pee Wee's Adventure? That's
That was not that bad.
yeah, exactly.
Love Pee-wee.
So
But
okay,
yeah, I hope so, man. You know, I love movies. You know, so if
yeah,
there's another one that comes and blows it out, oh man, I'm gonna be in love with that one. So
I'm glad you're open to that idea. Okay, so um, do the plug. Where can the viewers find you and follow, subscribe to you, brother?
yeah, you guys can find me on my YouTube channel called The Real Talk, real spelled REEL, and on social media it's just at The Real Talk, talk with two Ks, and that's on Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, if you guys want to talk movies and all that stuff, just come by and we'll have a conversation.
You know, and for the viewers out there, John Corona has this cool intro all the time. What's going on, everybody? That's
Oh yeah, I try to kind of say, hey guys, you know?
your what's going on. It's like my let's rock this. That's basically
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
what's going on,
Yeah.
guys. Well, thank you so much, John, for collaborating with me on this 10th anniversary celebration of Zack Snyder's Watchmen, which is your favorite movie of all time. And what a great discussion we had. And thank you once again for making the time. Until next
Oh,
time.
thank you, man. Again, like I said in the top of the video, it's an honor talking to this about this movie. You know, anytime I can, I'll do it. You know,
Yes.
especially with you, man. I always have a fun time collaborating with you, man.
Likewise, likewise. And to everybody out there, till the next collabo, let's rock this.